Chapter 11. The Full Moon Madness Masquerade Ball was an annual event at the Half Moon Country Club. The club went all out, twinning tiny white lights around the tree trunks and branches, decorating the elegant patio with masses of white flowers, and lighting what seemed to be 100 golden candles. A band was playing soft music in the elegant ballroom, but the guests were free to wander around the country club grounds. The full moon and starry sky caused the outdoors to be almost as bright as inside the club. Kelly walked into the club arm in arm with Slater. She was wearing a mask she'd bought for a Mardi Gras party last year. She thought she'd feel like a complete goon in a mask. But now that she was at the hall, she liked it. She liked being able to mingle without anyone knowing who she was. Slater looked almost sinister in the black mask, black suit, and the black shirt he was wearing. He had decided to come to the ball as Zorro, since he didn't have to buy anything new except a hat. He'd said it was the best costume he could come up with without money or an imagination. Kelly slipped out of her trench coat and handed it to the coat check. Slater gave a low whistle. "You know, I never thought I'd say this, Mama, but your green hair looks cool, especially with that outfit." "Thanks," Kelly said. "Can I meet you inside?" "Look for me by the snacks," Slater advised. Kelly hurried towards the ladies' room. On the way inside, she almost bumped into a full-length mirror. Then she realized it was Jessie. "Jessie! Kelly!" Kelly peered at her through her mask. "What are you doing with green hair?" "I dyed it green to prove to you that I didn't do yours deliberately," Jessie admitted. "I thought you might feel better if you weren't the only one with green hair." "What are you doing in my costume?" "I wanted to prove to you that I followed Nanny's pattern," Kelly said. "So I made it all over again, the exact same way." Jessie gasped, "But Kelly..." Kelly leaned closer. "Don't worry, I'm wearing a body stocking underneath." Just then, Lisa and Nanny came in. They both did a double take when they saw Kelly and Jessie. Lisa circled them slowly, her eyes glinting behind her Catwoman mask. "It's incredible," she said. "If Jessie wasn't so tall, I wouldn't be able to tell you guys apart. But can I ask you something, Jessie? Why is your hair green?" Jessie laughed and explained. "So I went and bought the book," she said, "and I saw that the instructions for a different rinse were on a facing page from the one we'd wanted. It said to never use it on brown hair, so I tried it. It came out perfectly." "I guess," Lisa said, "if you enjoy looking like you have seaweed for hair." "Gosh, Kelly, I'm so sorry. That was pretty stupid." "I think it was super of Jessie," Kelly said warmly. "I'll never forget it." "I bet I messed up too," Nanny said mournfully. "I'm sure I left a step out of that pattern. Did I mention reinforcing the seams?" Kelly shook her head. Nanny sighed. "It's all Cal's fault. I've got him on the brain." "Me too," Lisa almost said. "Well, it's all over now," Jessie said. "I'm just glad that my best friend is back." "Me too," Kelly said. "Whatever happens with the guys in our lives, we'll always be friends," Jessie said, and the two girls hugged. Slater cruised the snacks, but he really wasn't hungry. The band was playing a great number, but he didn't feel like dancing. He hadn't felt like himself all week. No, longer than that, Slater thought with a grimace. If he had to be honest, he'd have to say he hadn't felt right since he'd started to date Kelly. He'd felt off balance and just plain weird. Sometimes he wasn't even hungry. He's so hungry. Last night, he refused second helpings of his mother's meatloaf. She'd felt his forehead and asked him if he had a temperature. It wasn't that he didn't like Kelly. He did. Who wouldn't? He'd enjoyed every second of their dates and always looked forward to seeing her smiling face the next time. It was his other friendships that were all messed up. The gang just wasn't the same anymore, and he missed that. Maybe he hadn't realized how important all his friends were to him. He'd tended to focus on girlfriend problems. He hadn't realized that having friend problems could be just as big of a drag. He'd been avoiding Kelly this week, and he was sure she knew it. Maybe she even felt the same way. Slater roamed out onto the patio. To his surprise, he saw Kelly sitting under the shadow of a tree. He walked over to her and sat down. "I'm glad you're out here," he said. "I really wanted to talk to you in private, Kelly." He saw her give a start. She probably knew what was coming. "Look, we've been avoiding each other this week," he said, "and I think I know why. It's not working, Kelly. We can't exist in a vacuum. We can't have fun when we know our friends are miserable. I can't stand seeing Jessie so unhappy and knowing that I'm the cause of it," Slater sighed. "I don't know if Jessie and I are meant to be. Everything I told you about us is true. Our relationship was full of ups and downs. I never knew what was going on, and being with you is just easy and fun, but..." Slater waited hopefully for Kelly to say something. It wasn't like her to let him struggle on this way. Usually, she'd say the right thing to make him feel better. But maybe she was trying not to cry. "I'm not saying I want to get back with Jessie," Slater said, "and I don't know if you really belong with Zach, but maybe we owe it to them to try and figure out why we can't just let go. Kelly, I think it would be better for everybody if we broke up." Behind the mask, Jessie listened to Slater silently. She hadn't meant to impersonate Kelly. But once he'd confused them, she hadn't been able to resist hearing what he had to say. At first, she'd been overjoyed to hear that Slater wanted to break up with Kelly. She'd hardly been able to hear his words over the beating of her heart. But slowly, his words had sunk in. He was just so sad, Jessie thought. Loving her wasn't easy. It was almost like he loved her against his better judgment. "Do you want to go inside?" Slater asked. Jessie shook her head. "Should I leave you alone?" he said gently. Jessie nodded. A tear slipped down her cheek as Slater walked back into the party. For the first time, it occurred to Jessie that Slater could have been right all along. No matter how much they loved each other, maybe they just weren't meant to be. Zach looked for Jessie everywhere. He finally found her sitting on a windowsill in the hallway. The hall was lit with candles, and he could barely make out her features in the gloom. "Jessie, I've been looking for you," he said. He tugged uncomfortably at his costume. Weeks ago, he decided to come to the ball dressed as a devil. Now here he was in a shiny red suit, with horns and a pitchfork. He hadn't realized how appropriate the costume would be. Zach noticed Jessie flinch, but she didn't turn. She just kept looking out the window. "I know you're mad at me," Zach said. "You have every right to be. I did promise you that I'd hold to our bargain. But Jessie, I can't keep pretending that we're dating. I can't lie to Kelly that way. I have too much respect for her. I have to tell her the truth. Is that okay?" Behind the mask, Kelly heard Zach's words, and her heart sang. He wasn't involved with Jessie! A soft sigh escaped her, but Zach didn't hear it. Kelly reached up to take off the mask and show him who she was. "And then there's Irina," Zach said. Kelly stopped. "I know you were mad when I kept taking her out instead of you," Zach said. I had to for Screech's sake, but I'll explain about that later. The point is, something happened. Last night, we went to the beach and talked and talked. I think I'm falling in love with her," Kelly gasped. "Jessie, I didn't mean to hurt you." Kelly sprang to her feet. She jumped off the windowsill and whirled around to run away. A bit of gossamer material floated off her costume. "Jessie?" Zach asked, puzzled. Kelly started to run. Bits of her costume flew off as she dashed down the hallway. The last thing to hit the floor were the panels of her gauzy trousers. "Kelly!" Zach breathed.